practices from land cultivation, fishing, spiritual rituals, so you can see kind of going around working on the dimensions, those different times. There are other examples, right? We have programs, Born in Stone is another one of those. That's a good combination of Hama and Mea, right? Hama, the working and the practicing, and then the Mea, the things, these implements themselves, that as we know embody Mama, right? And are a collection of, especially intergenerational stories, right? How many meals are going to complement Mama, right? And those become pillars of family and pillars of tradition. And so, coming down to the individual level, right? Connecting into culture, connecting into these traditional learning systems through Mele, Hula, Oiwi, is a good one, cultural programming, as well as the rich body is, the salted, the salted words of the past that have been preserved for us to access now with a new lens, to access now with, fresh eyes in today's issues, right? So these repositories as bodies of work, even things as holidays and celebrating milestones, those are all ways that we can connect with believing as a dimension. Cool, what's coming up, right? Earlier I heard about Mana Kūkulu, the book series, right? And so these practices, leave access points for our community, for us as individuals and us collectively. And then as we move into, finding ways to indicate and measure and track progress of these well-being indicators, we can align to existing data, right? How many acres are being harvested of taro each year? But we can think beyond that, right? And we can think of connection, we can think of participation. And so the Kūmuhana well-being survey is an example of where we're trying to align present-day data, indicators, and metrics into things like Oiwi practices, right? And so it's through that Oiwi lens that we think about, those measures, and then along a culturally based, strength-based framework. And so there isn't a single source of this data, right? And so I know, data is a big part of our work, and so that's an example of kind of an active effort that we're continuing to have to further explore, further define, further measure and track, movement of, in this case, weed-building, but other indicators, right? So I think it's on the resources there, the Kūmuhana well-being survey. We're in our 5th year. I'll talk more of that later. But we have a few more dimensions to cover, so I'll come to mine.
Mahalo. So next I will be introducing Kūmuhana. Next slide, please. So Kūmuhana, it's defined as spirituality and sacredness of mana. And it's deeply rooted in your spiritual power. And one of the things that's really critical to emphasize about Kūmuhana is that the spirituality spans whatever your religious beliefs are, whether you're not religious at all. It spans across really the universe. It means many different things to anybody. So this dimension, it acknowledges mana as both a personal strength and a collective force within Native Hawaiian culture, and it promotes harmony and respect for one another. There's 3 key aspects that I'd really like to focus on: sacrality, healing, and interconnectedness. So with sacrality, mana is considered sacred and it requires care, respect, and intentionality. So in the sense of thinking of it as protecting your mana, when you are surrounding yourself around positivity, happiness, really uplifting and practicing self-love within yourself. Next is interconnectedness. So it recognizes the interconnected nature of people, land, and spirit. And notice again how these are all interconnected with the other dimensions of Kūmuhana and Momona, as Keith was emphasizing as well. And we'll see how it's also related to Ea, self-determination. And then healing. Kūmuhana promotes healing, resilience, and communication. And so, one more, next slide, please. So Kūmuhana in practice, one of this year's themes for the Kūmuhana gathering, which was actually last week, was Kūmuhana. And one of the one of the amazing kupuna that was there and shared with other fellow kupuna as well, discussed Ho'oponopono. And and its relationship and connectedness to Kūmuhana. So I want to engage where everybody is in relation to understanding of Ho'oponopono. So raise your hand if you have ever heard of that before. Great. Oh, there was a session right before this. Raise your hand if this was your first time learning about it at a session before this. A few people. Great. So welcome to the world of Ho'oponopono. And as I discuss this, I want you to think about and reflect how Ho'oponopono is related to your own spiritual beliefs. How do you practice reconciliation and forgiveness? And with that, how do you find that balance of self-love and balancing that within yourself? So this method restores balance by resolving interpersonal conflicts and realigning individuals with the sacredness and relationships to mana. And so one of the biggest reasons that we think about forgiving others is, yes, reconciliation, but also bringing that inner peace within yourself. And that goes back to the healing portion, where it's also promoting community strength, and it's also requiring care in that respect and dimensionality, as well as being interconnected with Aina, with your community, and within yourself. So now to delve into the real-world applications of how we apply Ho'oponopono and Kūmuhana. In families, workplaces, or community groups, you can use it as a structured process to address conflicts or misunderstandings. So I think that can really apply to a lot of our work here, especially when we're dealing with populations who are more vulnerable, who may struggle to find peace within themselves and to find balance of spirituality as a source of motivation. And especially with emotional healing as well. Life throws lemons at us, and we try to make lemonade with it, which is a very odd saying of resilience, right? And so practicing that resilience and understanding how to heal yourself, and emotionally and with others. And then at a community level practice, Ho'oponopono can be integrated into community-based programs, which is especially focusing on restorative justice initiatives, where it can help reconcile individuals with the community and heritage, strengthening both personal and collective mana. And this can apply to various things, so think of it as prison reform, particularly for youth and adults, and finding social justice in that sense. And then strengthening both the personal and collective mana again. And so that really just goes back to what I was saying about having that interconnectedness with your community and from yourself. Next slide, please. And next I will be introducing Ea. Next slide, please. So Ea is translation is what in terms of Kūkulu, self-determination and agency. It represents the values of self-determination, autonomy, and sovereignty in both the individual and community context. So in Native Hawaiian culture particularly, and this can apply to many indigenous cultures and minority groups across the world, is that Ea signifies the right and responsibility of individuals and communities to shape their lives, pursue well-being, and maintain cultural identity and independence. And we can see that in a lot of we'll be able to see that as well in a lot of cultural practices. And so with empowerment, we're promoting individual and collective agency. You're promoting the sense of, I can do this. You're promoting that I have the right to social justice and to my own cultural identity, and using your cultural identity as a straight-faced method to thrive. And it also maintains the right to your cultural expression and preservation. And then there's also collective well-being. It emphasizes the community's role in supporting self-determination for all members. We are, for the Lahui, for the greater community, self-determination goes beyond interpersonal, but also expanding across Hawaii, and it can be applied to many other Hawaiian challenges that we face in this world as well. Next slide, please. So Ea is the second theme two, the first being Kūmuhana. In 2022 and 2024, hula and Oiwi stand as the primary applications and embodiment examples. So hula, Oiwi, and mele. So practiced by Kūmuhana and other cultural practitioners, hula, Oiwi, and mele are powerful expressions of ea, connecting individuals to Hawaiian identity and spiritual heritage. And one of the great examples that came up was during our gathering last week was particularly with Oiwi, using your entire body, vibrate the vibrations in your nose, in your chest, feeling it in your ears as well, using that power to connect with your ancestors, to connect with your cultural identity. In particular, especially with hula, the motions and words, the words of Oiwi and mele practitioners convey ancestral stories, historical knowledge, and reverence for Oiwi in sacred places, embodying ea through each performance. It's a form of data. We speak a lot about the importance of data and data sovereignty, and data goes beyond what's written in the Western context, what's written in textbooks, and what is a peer-reviewed scientific journal. It is through the stories that our ancestors tell us. It is through what our Kūmuhana tell us. It is through singing. It is through chants, I'm sorry. And it spans what the Western conventional thought process is, or what data is. So in community-based learning, you can use cultural workshops like hula, Oiwi,
You gotta get out of that thinking so we can start shooting.
And as participants can learn to navigate identity through Hawaiian traditions, or whatever cultural background is. We all have a unique story to tell through our personal selves and through our ancestors as well. And it's important that we use that that self-determination to keep going. And with resilience and continuity, practicing and teaching hula, Oiwi, and mele ensures the resilience of Hawaiian identity, while each
So
generation
relatable
provides
now to like everything we do.
cultural practices. Now we'll pass it on to Penny.
Next slide, please. So we just have the resources that we kind of discussed with some of the links to the Kūmuhana cards that you have on the table, some of the other resource guides that you already have if you scan the QR code already. It's up here, as well as a link to the Photo Wellbeing Survey dashboard.
Can they upload the slides to Hova?
Thanks, Ken. Wow, that's a lot, right? Well, all for listening.
The presenters can upload documents, right?
Just 4 or 5 minutes. You have a deck of cards on the table. You've heard these discussions.